Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. It is a round table of podcasters to start off this Word Balloon town hall meeting. We've all read the news. Diamond is no longer going to be a DC distributor. DC has made this move, and later on, we're going to be talking to Patrick Brower, one of the great retailers of Chicago at Challengers Comics, an award-winning retailer, the Spirit of Light, the great Comic-Con award that they bestow on stores. Patrick won that a few years ago and has even become a judge of other comic retailers. So he'll be joining us. But right now, really happy to welcome Chad from Comic Core. It's good to see you, Chad.
Hey, thanks, John.
And from Around Comics, an old friend and an old Chicago fellow podcaster. And I used to be on their show all the time. Brion, have you ever been on Word Balloon?
No, I think this is the first time, John. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's really well. I apologize that it's taken us this long.
That's okay.
But, it's great to have you on. I know Tom has been on. I'm reasonably certain I had Chris on at one point.
It only took a pandemic. It just took a pandemic for me to get on and rioting in the streets. That's all.
Yeah, to bring us all together, guys. There's already comments. So before we get started, I want to acknowledge everyone that's already tuning in and saying some stuff. Eric Braun, how is this any good for retailers? I don't see it. As if there weren't enough struggles going on. Agreed. And Kevin Wright, from an entirely UK retailer perspective, this stinks. Kevin, I hope to be talking to Rich Johnston of Bleeding Cool to get a better perspective on how this affects not only the UK, but international comics as well. And hopefully that'll be happening on Sunday. Lee Webb, yeah, it really sucks. Why go into another exclusive? Why go to another exclusive? It gives us the same problems as before, but now with more shipping and handling costs, something we were talking about off the air. More paperwork, time, less time with customers, less service. I agree. Yeah, Kevin agrees. Spot on. Having a look and talking to a couple of people, it's looking like carrying DC Comics a cost rather than making a profit. Interesting. All right, here, a Greek guy. All right, Kostas, what do you got for us? I don't know if they care about fans and retailers overseas, but this will make it extra difficult for us to get DC Comics. I know I'm paraphrasing sometimes. There's rumors that retail prices will be all over the actual, over the actual cover price for a store in the UK. Imagine a store in Greece. I honestly think that my streak for many, many years, getting everything from the big two, is going to end soon enough. Don't get me wrong. I will still get select few, but only those I really like. And wait, there's even more comments. My God. This is crazy stuff, man. Craig Gorman, looking forward to it. Our store in Scotland has lots of thoughts. Interesting. I'm hoping that there are going to be some contrarian opinions of all this. Gene Papa, I have never been comfortable with Diamond's monopoly. If they can't survive with their remaining 70% of the market, then they're just a house of cards. Let them fall and let multiple smaller distributors rise to replace them. I like these contrarian opinions. Hayden, very interesting times. I agree, man. And Matthew, haven't people been complaining about Diamond for a while? All these are valid points on both sides because as I have learned, guys, I was telling you off the air maybe, and I know I told this to Patrick when the announcement was first made. I'm like, hey, I'm Country Mouse. I am not a retailer. And this is a City Mouse thing. Explain to me why this is a bad thing, City Mouse. And the City Mice did. So again, I am nervous. I feel bad for the retailers. We can go around the table right now and get opinions. So, Chad, let's start with you. What do you think?
It is. There's no good coming out of this for the retailers at their initial thoughts. I mean, what they're seeing right now is they're going to have to buy their books from their competitors, and how can they compete with that? And a big portion of that is where's their price point going to be?
I hear you, man. And we'll get into more of that about how these distributors are competitors as well. Sal, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, well, from the limited retailers that I've spoke to so far about it, it's definitely been pretty negative. But, I think retailers as a whole, and I don't mean just comic book retailers, but retailers in general don't like change. And any kind of change is going to come with a negative connotation, I think. So it's interesting. The international thing worries me the most. I mean, I think that's definitely the most valid concern right now is Diamond has Diamond UK, so they have an international distributor to keep pricing down. So what is DC going to do? That's kind of my biggest question right now.
As it was said by a couple of the people who've commented, DC represents about 30% of the pie of the publishing pie. Denny Dude has a comment. Competition breeds positive growth in any market. This will yield, I'm sure, better shipping rates and open up potential for new places of distribution. Certainly, that was my initial feeling. But also, again, it was interesting to hear and be reminded of the fact that, yeah, Diamond became a monopoly. They bought the assets of Cap Cities back in the 90s, about 25 years ago, to become the lone monopoly, thing. And also, I forget what Marvel's. You guys remember what Marvel's
Hero?
Hero something.
What the heck was? I had it written down somewhere.
No worries.
Heroes World. Heroes
World. That's right. There you go.
Well, and that's an interesting. I've already seen comparisons. I don't know if you saw Steve Jeppy's initial comment on this. It was another YouTube show I had seen, and he basically said something along the lines of, those that don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat the mistakes, and obviously referencing Heroes World and Marvel buying Heroes World to be their own distributor. But I don't know if this is the same thing as that necessarily. It's certainly different times. It's gonna be interesting to see a lot of the shakeout from this. I think one of the things that it could potentially be good for retailers is this gives Marvel a lot of leverage now. It gives Image leverage. It gives other publishers leverage now. Without a monopoly, now can Marvel go and get better rates and transfer that on to the retailers? I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's possible.
Let's also clarify, because there's people say that these are, competitors. They're Lunar and UCS or USC. I mean, and it's ironic because really both companies are divisions of big retailers. The two biggest Diamond accounts, Discount Comic Book Service, our buddy Christina Merkler, Brian, that we've known for many years, and she's a good friend to both of our shows.
Absolutely.
And I say that both from a full disclosure standpoint and an honest opinion of Christina as a business person and a person in general. I believe she's a very good character. And the other company is Midtown Comics in New York. And while I don't know anyone personally in Midtown, their reputation as a retailer is very good as well. And I know the publishers think very highly of both of those. But as we know, and as we became more informed, at least I did, and maybe Brian, you as well. Chad, I know you've got your people as well that you've talked to, retailers. It's a matter of, let's put it this way. What if you were a hamburger, like a diner that served primarily hamburgers, and you were an independent hamburger company, and you suddenly discovered that the only way you could get your product was from McDonald's, and that McDonald's suddenly was going to become the only way you can get burgers. And also that the burgers already had a built-in advantage because they were both a distributor and a retailer and could sell burgers, at a cheaper price. I mean, Chad, why don't you tell what you were telling me off the air about that scenario?
So, I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, if we don't know what the price point's going to be. So, I mean, here, for example, and I pulled this up. It said Lunar was a little bit more circumcised, an anonymous IP registration. However, their phone number and domain registration are in Indiana, which is also the home of DCBS.
That's right.
So
it's not a secret. I mean,
no,
Lunar is DCBS.
This was when back in April, everybody was like, why DCBS and this other? But what about the exclusives? Are they going to the retailers are worried that they're going to have to buy them at cost. And then where's their margins to make up the difference? They see that as a direct competition. The biggest issue that they have, the biggest concern is also the variants. The variants are already going to Midtown. They're already going to these locations because they're such big. Now, are they going to get an opportunity to get the variants? How do they get them? And I can tell you, living here on the East Coast, I personally saw 3 stores taking down DC posters, taking down the DC lights that are in the windows, because this is affecting them, and they truly feel that their voice in the organization left when Dan left.
Real fast, I want to put up a comment because I want to explain to Denny Dude who's like, well, DC doesn't own UCS or Lunar, so it's not quite the same. No, but the problem is that's like saying McDonald's doesn't own, or that, McDonald's doesn't own the cows. I mean, if you can only get DC from these two distributors, and in fact, that's regionally divided. One has one half the country, the other has the other half of the country, unless that's changed. That's a problem, Denny. And again,
is it? I mean, it's the way of business, though. In this day and age,
sure.
In 2020, that's just the way things are. And genuinely, you're going to compete against the manufacturer of just about anything. Most manufacturers are selling direct because it doesn't make sense not to. Now, usually they're selling at the highest price, and the reality is you've been competing against DC Comics and Marvel Comics for decades. They've sold subscriptions. You could buy directly from them.
But you're buying from a distributor. And again, these distributors are getting a value. And in fact, they're passing it on to customers, paying customers. Like Chad, what you were saying about preview.
So you go on to the only way that you're going to be able, the previews DC is going in, it's not going to be in Diamond anymore. So
yeah, DC will not be in the previews catalog anymore, which is obviously made by Diamond. So to find out
you have to go. Yeah, you're going to have to go to a DC website. On top of that website is a banner for Midtown asking for 40% on your subscription now, 40% off your subscriptions. So if you're buying all your books from Midtown, I mean, now I'm at Joe's comic book shop here.
Our comic retailers
real fast, Brian,
our comic retailers. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brian, forgive me because I want to add Rich Johnston from Being Cool, who is joining us.
Hello.
And by all means, and Rich, I'll let Brian ask his question to Chad. And also, Rich, congratulations. Great coverage on this today.
Oh,
and then absolutely. And then thank you, because I know it's really late. I appreciate you joining us. Obviously, you're up with this problem.
I was going to go to sleep, but instead I'm with you.
You're very kind to do that. So, Brian, what did you start to ask Chad? Forgive me for interrupting.
I mean, I don't think most retailers are going to be able to compete against, online retailers in any market, let alone comic market. So if you're only competing on price, you're going to fail as a comic book shop. I mean, if that's your biggest concern as a comic book shop, that you're only competing on price, there's no chance for you to win this before this came about. Like that can't be your marketing strategy, is to compete with, as a brick and mortar store, to compete with online retailers on price. It will not work. I come from an industry that is exactly the same. I work for a company that is a distributor and a retailer, and it is a constant battle between the two. I understand it. For years we've been going through this kind of thing. You cannot compete as a brick and mortar store solely on price. That is not going to happen. It's convenience, and it's many other things that you have to try and compete on as a brick and mortar store unfortunately against just the wave of the future, which is online retail. So I don't think that necessarily changes anything from this deal. That's always going to be the case, whether or not, and I don't think you're going to find any sort of advantage for Midtown or DCBS necessarily that they haven't already had. They're already the biggest retailers of comics in the United States.
Well, you're saying that, but they also have subscribers. They have subscriptions, people that are going to pick their books. I personally, you and I are going to go probably for the best deal possibly as a consumer, like most consumers do. And there's a loyalty there. But if I'm getting offered 15% off of my subscription at a brick and mortar where I can get 40% off, I'm sorry, brick and mortar, I'm out. I'm going this way.
And I can think of a lot of general customers that maybe don't have a store that will go to that advantage. Rich, have you heard enough to kind of comment on what we just been talking about now?
A little bit, yes. I'm of course in a totally different situation over here. Is that I'm a customer of British stores, of British stores, and we are completely out of this for UCS and Luna and all that, because retailers that I spoke to here have said the cost of shipping individually from the US is more than the cost that they're paying for the books. So which basically means DC Comics in British stores are suddenly going to double or treble in price.
Wow. Now,
I can't imagine that DC is not going to have some answer for that. That just makes no sense whatsoever.
They didn't have one. I've been talking to people there, and it's now been raised, and people are going, "Oh, I don't know what we're doing. Oh no, they can get them from UCS. Oh, they cost that much. Oh, we were unaware of this." So maybe they'll have an answer. There are things that could exist. Things could happen. I was chatting to Chuck Krasansky earlier. I noticed he's got a hub in Germany. Maybe he could be another distributor for DC. Maybe,
Chuck is Mile High Comics for people who don't know that name.
Yeah.
There you go.
So maybe Diamond UK will be able to carve out an exception to this new DC decision. I have no idea, but
or is it possible, Rich, that Penguin has been announced as obviously the trade distributor? Yeah. Is there a possibility, because obviously isn't Penguin doesn't it have UK channels?
There's certainly a possibility, but again, the idea of a bookstore distributor dealing with monthly comics, it's a different distribution model. I can't see it working. So purely on a very selfish aspect, Britain is slightly doesn't know what it's doing, and no one seems to have given it a second thought. This being a country where DC's strong presence led to people like, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Garth Ennis, Neil Gaiman, people like that, deciding that when they became writers, I want to write for DC Comics, and that continues to this day. You see quite a few DC still picking up British talent who really basically work for DC because they read DC and they've read DC. That link. Oh, also we also don't get the DC Universe app here either.
The streaming service, you're saying? DC
we don't get that in the UK either. So that link between the UK and DC may be going away.
Interesting.
Rich,
wow.
Do you have any idea what the market share for DC Comics is in the UK or internationally?
Yeah.
What percentage?
Diamond UK is usually about 10 to 15% of the direct market. Now for DC, again, DC has generally had a stronger presence in the UK with all the Vertigo things and Hellblazer and the like, so it tends towards the 15% market. But if that's going away, and who is going to pay 2 to 3 times what they're currently paying for DC Comics? I don't know. It's going to be suddenly vastly reduced unless something else happens. That's going to be a bit of a knock.
Agreed.
Not for Diamond. It's going to be a knock for DC.
I'm including some comments from the viewers because I think they're very interesting. Rowboaters 100. We all know almost every shop is going to get DC issues for Batman alone. Yeah, that is an interesting concern both for the international market, where there obviously is Batman's universal. I mean, what happens with Batman? That's again. Very interesting.
Would you pay you pay $4 for a Batman comic? Would you pay $8? So if it's the same thing,
but I think
when X-Men are just $4.
I think a lot of their plan though is being set up with where they're putting some of the books and that app, the streaming app itself. I mean, you have 2 books.
What's that, Rich?
Not available in the UK.
Again, absolutely. So even the digital product is not available in the UK.
Well, is this
Comixology, kind of those kind of things?
Oh, Comixology is.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, Sal, before you comment, our dear friend, former CBR reporter Kyle Fegley is jumping in. No disrespect to my beloved bud Sal, but indie bookstores and comic shops have been bucking the all retail is shifting online narrative for 20 years. If Amazon hasn't killed scrappy bookshops yet, DCBS won't kill comic shops.
Oh, I'm not saying they would.
I
wasn't saying that they're gonna kill them, Kyle. Good to hear from you. I haven't talked to Kyle in a long time. One of my favorite former combatants on Around Comics. But no, I'm not suggesting that they want to or that I want them to. I'm just saying if that is your main marketing strategy is purely price against online retailers, you're gonna fail. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Look what Jimmy says. I have to drive 2 hours to my local shop, and I will do it because I like the human interaction. Absolutely, man. It's the community of stores. Mm-hmm. And, later we're going to talk to Pat Brower of Challengers Comics here in Chicago. Another great example of a store that has fostered a great community. And Brion, as well, Dark Tower in Chicago is another great store that has fostered that kind of relationship. Oh, yeah, Comics, both in Skokie, suburban Chicago, and suburban New York. They do the same. Yeah, I mean, and again, but with the pandemic, whenever it ends, and I know it's already started to end for various stores, I don't know how the community exists. I mean, I know stores are doing things online and stuff like that, but it is that in-store interaction that until there's a vaccine, it's going to change, and that's a real challenge.
Absolutely. I wonder, Chad, you had brought up something that I wanted to go back to about. I wonder if this is, and I've heard kind of rumblings of this, is this a larger part of a strategy for DC to move away from single issues, to move away from the direct market and more for trades and books? And Rich, I'm sure you have comments on that.
I have heard that. I've reported that today. There's some of the gossip that's been going around, and that is something I've had from some senior industry sources, let's put it that way, that there's from the top DC, there's a move away from the monthly towards the original graphic novel. They've seen big increases in sales. They've looked at people like Scholastic Graphics and seen the huge sales that they've been getting as well. And there's a definite idea that monthly comics is quite hard. There's a big time pressure on putting this out. Someone was saying to me that what happens is that you have to deal with the urgent problems rather than the important problems as a publisher. And the monthly serialization of comics makes publishers make poor decisions because of this. And from the top, the idea is that DC wants to move more towards the graphic novel solution. So ramping up the amount they're doing, pushing down the monthly, maybe keeping it digitally serialized, definitely still keeping the Walmart books. But I noticed they've cancelled the Walmart books from the direct market as well. So
yeah.
Now this is gossip. This is from well-sourced people who should know what they're talking about, but it's nothing that's actually been confirmed by any, senior source. But this is the gossip that yes, DC are moving away to a graphic novel series solution.
Well, and literally, I was talking to Mike Morisi last night about his YA graphic novel, the Dick Grayson Lost Carnival book, and think about all those books, the impact they're having, and I think for the most part a positive impact. I know some people weren't crazy about the idea of an Asian Batman in the one case, but I think that's whatever. I wasn't offended by it, but regardless, it does seem like they are interested in attracting these other sales avenues through Scholastic and through bookstores and attracting this audience, which I get. I do understand that.
Something I've been covering certainly this year has been the massive increase in graphic novels, especially for the younger readers and YA audiences, from the big publishers, Little Browns, the Holton Muffins. Some of the bigger publishers out there are increasing their graphic novel line ridiculously. Like they may have had 3 or 4 last year. They've got 40 this year. They're planning 80 next year. So we're seeing a big increase of original graphic novels across the industry. And I think DC has been doing, well, why are we doing this when we could be doing that? And when you see people like Renata Pelgamir or Dav Pilkey outsell every single DC graphic novel combined, that maybe they're thinking, well, maybe we need to do it in a different way.
I like this comment from Deadpool Murphy. I do hope this means the end of floppies. Print periodicals seem like a wasteful, antiquated format. Now, that's easy to say. I don't know the numbers on this, Rich, or really all of you. I know that variants are a very important part of a local shop's business, and certainly they appeal to the Wednesday Warriors, the people that still like to bag and board and collect and see comics as much as a collectible hobby as they do a reading experience.
I think the tiered variant can do that more.
Say it again, Rich. I'm sorry.
I think the tiered variant can do that more, rather than here's 5 covers for this comic book. It's here's 2 covers, but one is 1 in 25, one is 1 in 50. Those can drive the kind of collectible thing, I think, more than just DC. Like DC's attitude of having like 2 covers and everything. It's the ones where people have to chase after things or have to go through various hoops. I think that seems to appeal to the collector more. Because
I'll even confess that I think a lot of my buying is hand-in-hand digital and more so collected books than it is the monthlies. I'll absolutely confess to that, and I support my local shops when I can. Pre-pandemic, clearly, it'll be
they're still making money. I mean, it's the monthly comic book market is still making money. These publishers that put them out are still making money. Sometimes it's going to be a bit softer than other times, and there has been a definite softness this year, and certainly a certain pandemic hasn't helped. but there's still a demand. There's all sorts of other aspects into why a publisher might not be making as much money as they could be. But look at the sales figures. It's hard not to make money.
That's why I found DC's statement today a little confusing, because they're like, oh, it's been a rough year. And yeah, it's been a rough year from a pandemic standpoint. Prior to the pandemic, it sounded like it was a great year right now for the monthlies.
It had been increasing. They were saying it was all like, kind of use the word stagnant and things. And it does. One thing I am very aware of is that every month, someone at DC Comics has been calling up Diamond and complaining about the way that Diamond report the figures. Say, what's the percentage market share this month? They say, oh, well, you haven't counted this, or you've done this wrong. And it's generally DC has been the one who calls up and makes that complaint. And they really take this seriously. I think the way it's seen within the industry, the way it's seen within Warner Brothers, is constantly coming second to Marvel and being further down that market share. Now, as far as I can tell, the actual amount of money they've been making has been going up this year, but their market share has been going slightly down. And it just doesn't look as good. This is one drastic solution to not being very happy with the chart, but it may have fed into it, certainly.
Understood. I want to add some more comments from the Peanut Gallery. Denny Dude, did you see the TKO method where they release a finished graphic novel but also release in single issues for people who wanted it? I feel that this is a method that could work. I don't know about that. And I mean, I love what they've been doing. And certainly they've been pairing with incredible creators to make really exceptional books. Jeff Lemire immediately comes to mind, certainly. And it wasn't it Gabriel Walter that did the art for that book, I believe. Yeah, and then here, Jose Molina. I love collected editions. They're about 85% of my collection. The rest are trade and some floppies. I see the value in the monthly format. I read Little Bird, made by an amazing team, and it. Okay, fair enough. I like that. And let's see. Oh, Chip Mosier's checking in from Comixology. Now, it's great to hear from Chip. Thank you, Chip, for chiming in. Pre-pandemic, the American Bookseller Association reported a 49% growth in the market for indie booksellers from 1,651 in 2009 to 2,470 in 2018, and now reporting over 2,500. And I know, that was the initial concern, as Chip well knows, with Comixology and digital 10 years ago. Is this the end of the local comic shop? And clearly we've seen that, no, if there is a place for it. But again, in this weird pandemic world, I mean, and again, I see both sides of keeping a state open and keeping a state closed. And I mean, good Lord, health needs to come first. But hey, I'm a kid from a restaurant family business, and I can't imagine what my father would have been going through having to deal with this stuff. I can't imagine the ulcers he would have been having during this stuff.
Oh, I know some business owners, local business owners, small businesses, difficult times for sure. And it's not going to be easy for comic shops. It's got to be insanely difficult for them right now to try and deal with this. I don't know that number is going to go up anytime soon. I don't think and it's a shame. I certainly am not, a proponent of getting rid of comic book shops. I love comic shops, but I'm not your customer. I'm like you, John. I buy mostly, if I'm buying a single issue, it's digital, and then I'll get trades, because I don't want a bunch of single issues and boxes and bags and boards anymore. I did that for 30 years, and it's just not who I am anymore, what I want to do. I'm sure they're out there. Those guys are out there, but is that growing? Is that market growing, or is it the same? We've talked about this over and over again. Is it the same consumers that are just getting older? Is it wise for DC to take this opportunity? And yeah, it's an opportunity, unfortunately, at the result of comic shops' pain, but it is an opportunity for them to make a change in their marketing strategy and go towards a market that they've seen huge growth in, with, like Rich said, in other types of YA titles, that kind of thing. As a corporation, of course, they're going to look for where's the sense in it. What is the money? Where is the money? And they're going to follow that.
I appreciate Chip's comments, and basically Chip was saying that the local shops are about the same size as the indie shops, 2,500. 2,500 to 3,000 has been the local shop number I've heard, Rich. And also, here's a go ahead.
Lower than that.
Oh, is it slightly lower? Okay.
I mean, there was about 2,400 and change diamond accounts, and not all of those were actually like working comic book stores. And then you add the British ones on top. It's about 2,300 is about the estimate.
And then John VS, how things are going from a retailer standpoint, retail in general, with regards to the pandemic shutdown. Are things getting better? Are things starting to open up in the UK?
Not in the UK. I mean, there will be. June the 15th is when non-essential stores are allowed to open. Right now, all comic stores are shut.
Sure.
Some people are working from within them.
Right, curbside service, I imagine, and online auctions and the like.
Yeah. Also, there's the government have done a thing where businesses can furlough staff, and the government will pay 80% of all salaries.
Oh, that's great.
So that's kept a lot of things still ticking over, and the plate's still spinning.
Sure.
And what happens now, we're not sure. I'll be going to London to cover it, to see the central London stores opening and seeing how they're doing, and trying to go around the area to see how things are. We don't know.
I was going to ask Rich, what questions? Because I imagine your time is short here, and I really do appreciate you staying up and everything. But what details are we looking for answers? What questions? I mean, obviously we want to. I'm sure you want to talk to some DC people directly. Do you anticipate that will happen, or?
I do talk to some DC people directly.
Well, I know.
Never on the record.
All right. So what questions are you still trying to figure out the answers to?
Personally, from a very British perspective, I'm going how on earth are you going to get comic books to British stores at a price that they can sell them for? For me, that's the big one.
Of course. But
there's plenty of other ones out to go on that. I mean, we're looking at a massive, big increase in costs to British stores dealing with DC. There's going to be a modicum of increase of costs to other stores in the States who are having to deal with the added costs of multiple distributors now. I'd ask, why now? Why was it now that this had to happen, when stores coming out of pandemic, when you could see DC going to Luna and UCS as a way of helping a number of stores to sell more comic books at a time when they weren't able to. Now it seems to be actively harming those potentially stores, because you're now getting added extra costs on top of all the other costs you've got. And there's the uncertainty as well. So it feels like, why now? This is a time when I thought we were meant to be coming together. Everyone would be talking about unity. Maybe DC and Marvel crossover projects had been mooted. I know people are seriously working on these kind of things right now. So in a time when we had unity, why did you go for division? It feels like the wrong time to do this.
Rich, I think the answer is in the Diamond's response. They had asked for an extension last week. They asked for another extension because this was just continued. Their contract was up, so they kept on asking for an extension, and they asked for an extension for June 30th. And then this week they asked for another extension through the end of July. Diamond then asked why, and they said you'll have an answer by Saturday the 6th, and they got the response on the 5th.
Yeah, Chad was saying earlier that DC, like, I guess retailers were dreading Fridays because that's kind of what DC's been dumping a lot of the bad news, and that is such classic business and political strategies. If you don't have good news, Rich, as a journalist, exactly. We've been in the real journalist world enough to know. Yeah, you got bad news, dump it on Friday afternoon because it's going to hit everybody like what, and then you really won't hear anything until Monday.
That's old school thinking as well. The old school was you do it on a Friday because no one's going to read the news on the Saturday or the Sunday. I tell you this, Bleeding Cool gets as much traffic on a weekend as it ever does on a weekday. I'm sure that those stories that rule is gone. And
well, again, because online it's the 24/7 news cycle. There's never a slow period. Honestly, man, I always tell you, it's like, Christ, and I know you got a staff working with you and stuff, but you are always churning out content every day.
Yes.
Hey, Rich. Question for you about Diamond UK. Do you see any sort of ripple effect for that branch of Diamond? I mean, does this cause problems for them financially? And can that possibly lead to increased prices through Diamond UK?
Well, I can't say it wouldn't, because you're reducing the amount of volume, so it's becoming less efficient. So you still have the same costs of warehousing and stuff, but now it's being divided between fewer product. So there's going to have to be some kind of knock-on at some point. Might not be immediate, but it feels like the system will eventually adjust, and with less product, they'll have to charge more per. And that's going to be feels like that has to be the same for Diamond US as well. When Diamond US, has razor-thin profit margins. It's now going to have to bulk those up a little bit, or at least it's going to have less it's working with in order to raise that kind of money. So all over the place, there's going to have to be slight increases in costs. So that will spiral up and out. Here's the other thing, because Diamond have had a monopoly, and monopoly is not healthy for competition and prices.
Yep.
But generally, Diamond have kept their margins thin. What happens now is you have new people entering the marketplace, but they're not competing for Diamond with anything. There's no actual competition going on between Diamond, because Diamond have lost DC completely. They can't compete with them. And the new distributors don't have Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, so they're not competing there either. No one is competing. The only people who are competing are UCS and Luna against each other.
Well,
no one else is competing.
I mean, you weren't, but I mean, it gives leverage to the other publishers as well to have other options. I mean, Marvel now has incredible leverage with Diamond. So does Image. So does Boom. So do other publishers. Now they have leverage.
But
didn't have.
They always did. I mean, at any point, any of these people could go and leave and start their own distributor, or go to another distributor. But the cost of doing that is quite high, and it's still quite high. They've always had that opportunity to walk away and do their own thing, to do another Heroes World, whatever it might be. But they've generally decided that we're doing the best deal with Diamond, and I don't see how that changes.
Does this, Rich? And I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before in our last conversation when this first was announced about Lunar and UCS and everything. If I'm saying, is it UCS? I want to say it properly.
Yeah.
Okay. Marty Pasco, the late Marty Pasco, 10 years ago on my show said, why are Disney and Warner's at the time still printing comic books? Wouldn't it make sense for them to license the publishing end to an IDW, to a Boom, or somebody like that? And is it possible, given AT&T's divestment of other publishing arms that were part of Warner, Simon & Schuster comes immediately to mind, and I believe Time Warner as well, the Sports Illustrated and all the various publications that were under that arm. So is it possible that these are the first steps towards not them getting rid of the IPs, of course, because no one's going to sell Batman. Are you nuts? Of course not. Or Superman or the Justice League or any of the heroes that DC represents. But I could see them possibly shifting, as most of their other stuff, they don't, Time Warner didn't make the bed sheets and the birthday cards and all the other ancillary properties. They licensed it to other companies. Couldn't they do the same with comics?
I think
What's keeping that from happening?
I think there's two things there. Firstly, Marvel does that already with IDW and other Star Wars books owned them elsewhere, and they do them themselves as well. Marvel is quite happy to let other people do them as long as they get to do them too.
Sure.
And that's the kind of message. And DC does a bit of that as well to IDW for the big kind of collections.
Right, the artist editions. That's true. The oversized artist editions.
It doesn't have to be either or. You could do both, and that's fine. But the second point is, when it comes to telling stories with the characters, it's easier to keep it in-house. It's easier to keep control of it on in-house. And especially, even in-house, you still get things like Batman Damned happening. So if you have that in further spread, there's more likelihood of a Batman Damned similar instance happening somewhere.
Go on. Yeah, no. I mean, my comment to that would be much like Lucas vetting everything that IDW and that's the thing. I could see a DC editorial panel.
Warners like to keep putting out the stuff, whether that's with the films or the TV or whatever. They like to be the ones who are doing it. I can't, as it stands right now, see DC divesting the publishing of this stuff to somebody else. Right now, certainly, they're all about keeping it within themselves, doing them. They might be doing it differently. And if someone internally makes a financial case, you never know. From what I've heard, from what I've told people, there's no plan to license that out to another publisher.
Okay.
It might be seen as weak, as lack of control.
Have you postulated that as well and asked that question? Okay.
Oh, for quite some time. I've been
okay.
This. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that won't change in the future, but for quite a long time, there's been while people might speculate, and people always speculate, there's been no actual move within DC, within Warner's to go in that direction.
Do you think part of that might be that, as DC and Marvel have merged, or not merged, but they've combined a little bit of the creative forces between the comics and the other properties, movies and TV shows, that kind of thing, with Jeff Johns, Jim Lee, those kind of creators. I mean, if you now move that to IDW or whoever, that creates a separation between those two things. And I think, do you think that could be part of it as well? We already have these guys here, and they're involved with the comics and the movies and the IPs. Why separate it?
I agree. Yeah. Why separate? Certainly, there's a lot of crossover between how these things are being used and behaved and being created for all sorts of promotional purposes. But yeah, I can't see it being separated. I can't see it going elsewhere. Warner's likes the control with these kind of stuff, with these kind of stories. From every account I've had talking to people, it's are you mad? They're not going to do that. It goes against everything the company seems to stand for, whether they're owned by AT&T or not. Warner's likes to have, they've got their nice big offices in Burbank. All the stuff happens around. They like to be able to talk to people and stuff. So yeah, I can't see them taking that section and sending it over. They brought everyone over from New York to LA because they didn't want them to be kept separate. They like to have them all together, keeping an eye on everyone. So that's their corporate strategy. Other publishers have different ones. So that's how I see it, and I've seen it. That might change. I can't tell the future. But right now, that's how it is.
Rich, one of the interesting points you said is that they didn't have a plan for the UK when you asked. Well, Luna and UCS, they're on opposite sides of the US. I think their plan here was these retailers can handle this, and these retailers can handle this. Yeah. And it was solely, and I'm, now that you brought that to light, I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely weren't thinking on this one.
10 to 15%. That's not an that's a sizable chunk of anyone's business.
And Rich, before you came on, I was saying Christina Merkler. I've known her for as long as I've been podcasting, and I think she's an honorable businesswoman. And in fact, I was so happy for her when she not only joined the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund but became its president. And I mean, that's the thing. She is a friend of comics. I don't know Midtown comic people. I have only heard positive things as a retailer. So yeah, that's honestly, I hope I've reached out. Brian, you interviewed Christina a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I want, so about 2 weeks ago or so, it was the end of May. And I urge people to go and watch that video on your Around Comics YouTube channel, and also listen to the podcast as well.
Thank you.
Tell me about the conversation and what you gleaned from talking to Christina.
Well, as you said, we've known Christina since the beginning of doing our podcast, and when DCBS was a very small company, and seeing their growth, knowing her and her husband Cam and her family, and like you said, full disclosure, they're our friends, and I think that they're good people. They love comics, so I might be a little biased in talking about it, but the conversation with her is always great. She's very straightforward and honest. She's always been, open to any question. There's never been a question about, before she comes on about like she doesn't want to talk about this, or there's anything. There's nothing involved in that whatsoever. She'll answer any question you have to ask her. And we had a great talk. Obviously, we didn't know that this was coming, and she didn't hint to that at all. We asked her directly, is this a temporary situation? Is this an ongoing situation? And she said, hopefully it's an ongoing situation, but for the time being, it was meant as a temporary stopgap to help retailers. That's all that they meant. But they did create a new company to do this. So I think she probably knew that and wasn't able to talk about it. We'll probably try and get her on again, or I'm sure, she'll be on maybe your show or somebody's show to talk about it. But, I know she has her detractors, and there's people that are not fans of hers for whatever reason, but I certainly am not that. But then again, I'm not a retailer. I don't deal with her in that way. I don't deal with her in a business situation. It's very friendly. I don't have to deal with her in that way, so I can't really speak to that. But as far as our conversation, I think retailers that are worried about some sort of underhandedness that's going to happen because that they're a distributor and a retailer, I think that's ridiculous. They're, for one, they don't need to. They're incredibly successful as DCBS, and this is just more business for them. And they're very, Cam, Cam, he is one of the, straightforward, honest people in the world.
Yeah.
And they're both just good, nice people from the Midwest. I don't think they're looking to necessarily, do anyone harm, and never really have been. They're going to do business. They're going to sell comics. They're going to, try and make money and do the best they can. But I think you've already, I think some retailers have already come out and said that, like, they were shocked by the packaging that they got, in the first shipment, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, yeah, they do a great job. There's a reason they're successful.
We have seen their warehouse in operation. But again, and Rich, and Chad, I want you both to comment on this. I get a store saying, they are still my competitor. And because of the services they offer. And I don't want them to know how good my DC books sell or don't sell. And they could easily counter program against me. Again, maybe that's a wrong assumption on my part, but I guess that's some of the concerns. And, I don't know. John V. real fast. Diamond was a retailer back in the day. And we're actual. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I understand. More distributors back then were actual stores. You're absolutely right about all that.
But yeah, Richard, Steve Jeppy divested himself of stores once Diamond started to go as a distributor. He realized he's decided that I can't do both. It looks bad.
Yeah. I don't know what else you want to add to that, Richard, Chad, in terms of that local shop concern of.
So from the local shop standpoint, and I'm going to put myself in the retailer stance, and from a business standpoint, this is a great opportunity for both companies, from DCBS and Luna.
Yeah.
But from a retailer, they've got 10 days. Okay, so you wake up on Friday morning, you get an email, and now you have 10 days to set up your account. All orders are already final. You have to now get those orders to another distributor. It's putting their entire world in chaos. And the margins on comic book stores are so small as is. There's not much profit there. And they're doing it because they love the industry.
Don't most comic book shops carry other products too, not just comics, toys and shirts and different things? Are they getting it only from Diamond? They're not dealing with any other distributors about.
That's correct. I can tell most of them. The majority of them. The only thing outside of the comic books, anything outside of it is the bags and boards, and the long boxes. That's who they're buying at. Besides from Diamond. Honestly, this does put them in a peculiar position to figure out real quick how they're going to handle their clientele.
And save that question too. But sorry, Richard, because I want you to hear more. But obviously, again, Pat Brower is joining us in around 10 minutes or so from Challengers, and as a retailer can answer that question. So I hope you bring it back up. Forgive me, Chad. Continue.
No, I'm just saying. I'm looking at it at both sides. From a business standpoint, for DCBS, great power move, fantastic. From a retailer, these guys got into it because they love the hobby. The majority of them got into it because they enjoy the hobby. They have 10 days now to buy this and figure it out, and how are they going to do it? And a lot of them have bills and outstanding things with Diamond already. One of the biggest things was, I think, one of the big contributors to this is when Diamond went back to DC and said, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to pay you because the pandemic. And I think from a DC standpoint, they said, okay, cool. And now we're going to go look. And I think That's what exactly transitioned. Now, a lot of things have happened since, and they're able to make those payments. But in the same breath, DC wasn't wasting any time.
No, they saw an opportunity. I mean, they jumped on it, and my feeling is they probably had this idea for a while, and it was just the timing was worked out. And like I said, and I said at the beginning, the biggest concern for me is, like you said, Rich, I don't understand how they're going to go forward without some sort of international distributor. You can't expect international comic book stores are going to carry your comics if you're going to have to bump up shipping costs, whatever, 30-40%. It's just not feasible. I mean, that's insane if they don't have some sort of solution for that in the works. Then I'm just like, okay, this is crazy. They must have at some point figured out, well, they don't care about the international comic shops. And that, I mean, just from an optics standpoint, that seems nuts. So I would be shocked if there isn't something offered as a solution sometime soon. But stranger things have happened in this industry for sure.
Would things from another world be a potential store/distributor, Rich? I mean, I'm trying to think of an equivalent to.
That's in the States. I mean, again.
Excuse me, and forgive me. Then I can't remember the big UK store
Forbidden
that
Planet.
might. Forbidden Planet, exactly,
Well,
buddy. Yes.
Funny you should mention that, because Forbidden Planet is also Titan Comics. They're all owned by the same company. And back in the day, they used to have Titan distribution, which used to distribute comics across to British stores, also owned by Forbidden Planet. And Titan distributors was sold to Diamond and became Diamond UK.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. All right.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think any British store wants Forbidden Planet to be distributing their comics to them as well for the same reasons. But I think they'll take it over UCS or Luna if they get those prices down. But I don't know. I actually don't know. We'll have to see. I'm sure these things are being discussed. I've already been discussing such things as well. Right now, no answers. It honestly seems that this has taken a lot of the industry by surprise. Everyone I spoke to was like, no, we had no idea this was coming. Other distributors, other companies were like, we hadn't a clue. This all happened all at once.
Well, and again,
So,
it seems to, forgive me, Alex, I wanted to bring up this Facebook user. Yes, I mean, people are asking, have we addressed the rumors that this is a play by AT&T to get rid of floppies, move DC content to a book market? Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's, again, and that very comment that Rich just made, yeah, I mean, this is coming from above. And I've heard other podcasters and YouTubers already discuss this as well, saying, hey, this is not, the Jim Lees and the others as far as the immediate DC.
I wouldn't say so much. I'd say this is definitely. I'd say I look towards someone like Pam Lifford as someone who's been making big moves within DC. She has a vision of how she sees this publisher and making the moves in that direction. So that's who I'd be looking for. But, again, she's pretty smart as well. So we don't. Here's the other thing: we haven't seen the whole plan yet. There is clearly something there. They've been hinting at things. They're saying, "Oh, these can be great. Something's going to be great for the direct market," because right now it's not. So there must be something somewhere. I hope, but we haven't had all the shoes dropping yet. So there's more stuff to come. I just don't know what it is yet. Let's find out.
Oh, Dino Haspiel joining us. Maybe DC Comics will print comics in England for British distribution.
That has been tried in the past. They've done that before, but the numbers. You could do that. You could do that for Batman. You could do that for Justice League. A number of books like that. But again, for 10%, if you look at say 10 to 15% of the print runs, for a lot of books, that's just not feasible.
Well, but if they are going to limit the print distribution across the board, if they're going towards floppy or they're going away from floppies, going to digital and trade, then you have a selected amount of titles. Maybe it does make sense then.
It could do. And they have done that in the past. They've sub-licensed rights. That happens all around the world. You sub-license the rights to certain comic books and they get published in the actual countries themselves. or the foreign editions. I'm sure you guys are very familiar. And certainly for a good long while, DC has been doing that in Britain. But Titan and Panini have both published their versions, this newsstand versions of DC Comics. So that there is a history of doing that. But again, it's generally only for select titles. So it resembles a bit like what you see with the Walmart giants. You see, that's the kind of thing that we've had in Britain for decades. But not as much now.
And again, boy, I'm glad Robotsters is bringing this up. Digital is weird is a weird with DC. For instance, certain titles finishing the runs only on digital. Have no clue if they'll get a floppy print, or is that rumor? Well, Supergirl they've already announced is finishing
quite a few. Supergirl, Terrifics,
right?
House of Whispers. But the thing is, the same thing as Lucifer. But the same thing has happened with Marvel. Marvel's done that too. So
absolutely
first.
No, Lucifer's getting a trade, though, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So
I think we'll get trades.
But the people that are vested in that, what are they going to do? I mean, you've already got a complete run. That's going to leave you scratching. Okay, hey, what are you going to do? Bag and board your? I'm not a bag and board guy. I read. I'm a reader. But are the collectors going to bag and board their iPad and throw it in there?
Yeah, they're SOL, man. They're shit out of luck. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Sterling Gates, former Supergirl writer, already made that point. It's like, well, there goes my complete Supergirl run. And I sympathize with those collectors who are a big part of local shops.
Although, to be fair, as long-standing collectors, we have to be used to comic book series being cancelled in mid-story. How many times has that happened over the last few decades? It does happen. So, it's not out of the ordinary, really, for that to happen in comics.
No, but I guess the direction that they are pushing that digital also surprises. I mean, they're removing all the original content and putting it on HBO Max, but now
it's not quite. I mean, let's be fair. The books that have gone to that, it's basically books that were coming to the end. It's the books that were already cancelled or they were already coming to this end, and those are the books that are going into digital. And that's true for Marvel and for DC. It's not taking their books and putting them on digital for the foreseeable ongoing. It was more like a stopgap. It was kind of like, these books come to the end. We can't justify printing them. You can justify, because right now the sales are lower because of the whole pandemic and things, sales are lower. You can justify a print run for a comic book that is continuing, that will have more issues coming out in the future. It's harder to justify print runs for books that have only got 2 or 3 issues left anyway, and we're never going to be around to make the money up. So you might as well put them over to digital because you'll lose less money that way.
Do you think this has anything to do with the Dio leaving? Since he was no, I mean, he was a pretty big proponent of the direct market. Do you think?
It could be that his absence has made this easier. But I would say someone like the absence of Bob Wayne weighs much heavier.
Yeah.
On DC.
I was talking to Chad about that earlier today, Rich, and how really, again, unless you're really in the retailer world, you don't realize what a friend to the retailer Bob was for decades, being a retailer himself.
Really?
And yeah, man, as I got to know Bob and everything, his wall came down, and I had good conversations with him. And I know post DC, he had a website. I haven't heard from him since he left. And good Lord, wouldn't that be a great voice to hear from right now? And I'm sure he has enough grace and courtesy with his fellow people that are still there that we probably wouldn't get a straight story out of him. Huh?
He is too graceful. That's my biggest problem with him. He is a traditional Southern gentleman. He is very polite. He knows how things go. He doesn't want to rock the boat in that way. He's a really genuinely beautiful, lovely person to know. Sometimes he's just too much like that, and I just wish occasionally he'd go the way that, say, Bill Shanes is going right now. But yeah,
why does it not surprise me, Rich, that your favorite kind of people are the people that are willing to talk out of school?
Well, there is that. No, but I really love Bob Wayne so much, so I can't really say that. But it is, obviously, if you can come towards my direction for a little bit, of course I'm going to enjoy that a little more. Yes.
Yeah, this is again interesting times, and we were all just stunned by the news. I know, Chad. Are you okay, or do you have to go?
I'm in a little bit. I got a little bit of time.
Okay. All right, Rich, you doing okay? I mean, you know,
so strangely, I seem to be. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you got your second win. Good Lord, I know I feel terrible that we're keeping Rich awake. All right, man, because I know you're gonna, it's gonna be busy for you the next couple of days and stuff too. So,
well, what else would I could be doing at 3 a.m.? Would be better served than talking to you guys. I think I'm where I need to be.
Rich, I might have told you before, since the pandemic, my sleep is all over the place. I wake up at 3 a.m, cannot fall back to sleep till 9 or 10 in the morning, sleep till early afternoon. I am all over the place in this stuff. It's ridiculous. And I'm having Zoom call nightmares, which frighten the hell out of me. I'm like, and they don't upset me other than waking up angry. Like, I'm like, really? I can't even get a break in my dreams. I gotta live this shit. It's ridiculous.
What does a Zoom dream look like? Because
honestly, I wish I could give you details, but it's just like that I'm dreaming I am having another Zoom conversation, or like this StreamYard conversation right now. And I'll wake up like, oh, come on, damn it. I'm like, can I dream about like something normal, about my normal life or anything? I suppose not. Here's a comment.
If this is happening, keep a notepad and pen by your bed. Write this down, because this is golden. I want to know more. Please, for me.
I will, man. I absolutely will.
Hey, John. While we were talking, I texted Christina at DCBS and asked her about the international shipping. And I asked her, can I get you to comment on whether Lunar is going to be distributing internationally? And she said,
they do.
Yes.
They are.
She said, yes, we will be distributing internationally, and we'll be working out the logistics with those retailers to get them the best options for their shipping.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure they are. I just don't think they're going to be able to come anywhere close to what Diamond UK has been able to achieve with a much larger amount of content coming through. I can't see how they're going to be able to, and also having a hub here. So like Diamond ships everything into a big warehouse outside of Manchester, and then it gets sub-distributed around Europe that way. And that's basically, you put all the cost of shipping of the Atlantic onto one big shipment a week, and as opposed to having lots and lots and lots of mini shipments. And that's absolutely, I'm sure, but UCS and Luna are definitely going to be doing the best they can. They already do distribute internationally, and quite a few British shops did try it, but everyone said the price was just insane. If they can find a way to get the prices down, that'd be great. I can't see how they can get the prices down to match what Diamond UK achieved, and that's much the thing. You can see for the UK, you can see a big increase in costs, and I think, but only for the DC books. So DC are going to become really uncompetitive for customers. And if you're a Batman fan, will you pay twice the price, or will you decide to become a Spider-Man fan and pay half what Batman costs? That's the difference here. I think it's going to be a change.
I'm interested, Rich, because what is the US dollar equivalent price for a US British comic in England? Because I think Canada it's like $1 more, if I remember correctly.
There's definitely a premium, a combination of international shipping across the Atlantic, and the fall in the value of the pound after Brexit has pushed prices closer to parity pound to dollar. It's not there yet. Although weirdly it is for digital, because digital costs. No one's quite worked this out why this is, but recently digital prices have jumped to being above print prices in the UK.
Wow! So, wow!
Which, by the way, for years they were significantly under. For by a really big degree. So for digital, has seen an increase in prices of about 60 to 70% recently.
Holy crap!
Wow!
So that's quite interesting. We have no idea what the price will be. It changes with the currency. It's been below parity. I mean, back in the day, I used to remember when it was about 60%. That was great. You pay 60 pence for a dollar comic, and now you're having to pay about 90 pence for a dollar comic, that kind of thing. So there's been an increase over time, but this is going to basically getting the comics from Luna or UCS will increase that. So instead of saying paying 85 pence or 90 pence for a dollar comic, you'll be paying about £1.50, £1.60 for a dollar. It's going to flip.
And yeah, the pence is essentially like, when you say 90 pence,
Yeah,
100 pence. 100 pence is a pound, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
All
so
right,
you're going to see it's a big jump, and I can't see, unless someone invents teleportation very, very soon, I can't see how they're going to get over that issue. Maybe they'll open a hub in Britain.
That's exactly what Denny Dude just suggested. Absolutely.
Yeah,
they
but again,
a warehouse in the UK.
Investment. That is going to be quite an investment. And again, it's just the DC titles. The biggest one I think is maybe, as I've said this before, maybe they'll treat Diamond UK as a separate entity and let Diamond UK distribute, which is possible. They are financially separate organizations, I believe.
Okay.
Or they can have a third distributor who has a presence in Europe and who will be able to bring in them through the warehouses that way, and maybe has some experience with comics. So, Mile High Comics was mentioned, but it could be anyone.
Interesting. Yeah, isn't it interesting? You with Chuck and Mile High Comics kind of finding its way in the conversation.
But either way, it's still going to increase prices. So to some degree, we're still going to see those prices having to be passed on to the consumer for everyone.
Hey, John, I'm gonna.
Okay, Chad.
I just want to tell you, thank you so much. I'm having my second I'm like envisioning Sylvester the cat with a canary in his mouth, because I'm sitting on here with 3 people that I've watched and read, and oh my God, I mean, Rich, thank you so much and John, thank you for inviting me, and Slade Wilson up on top.
Exactly.
Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you everybody soon. Thanks.
Chad, thanks a lot for coming on, man. Absolutely. Chad from Comic Core. I urge people to check out Comic Core's great stuff. They're amazing. Alan, look who's joining us now. As soon as we lose Chad, we can welcome a great Chicago retailer.
I'm the new Chad.
There you
hey,
go.
everybody, I'm the new Chad. Rich, is it 3 a.m. for you, Rich?
It is.
Man, that is dedication.
Seriously, man, isn't that great that Rich is staying on and chatting?
Yeah, right?
It is great.
Well,
yeah.
I know the viewers appreciate it, Rich. And truly, I think Brian's been asking, and we've tried to ask some decent questions regarding the international market. And truly, I think you're pointing out things that I think when the headline came out that people didn't even consider beyond North America, because as usual, the U.S., we're always so worried about ourselves, we forget about the rest of the world. And it's like, hey, we like Batman. How come what are we going to do without Batman? So I get it, man. So thank you.
We like the best Batman. Remember that?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I completely agree. Hey, I didn't know. Jeff Johnston was telling me in my Stargirl episode recaps that James Robinson is part of the writing staff of Stargirl. And clearly,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. The old team is back writing great Stargirl and JSA stories. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Patrick, welcome.
Thanks. I'm looking for a Jack Knight crossover in that series eventually.
That's
got to happen.
Wait. Can I just say right now, I've got real background envy, because all your stuff is fantastic. You've chosen very well how to portray yourselves.
I think Chad had the best background, and now he's gone, and now you have to have my Dalek in the background as a replacement. Thank you.
You can't see my my original art that I have on the walls, but I mean, yes, Sal's got great stuff as well.
Sal's got one of his Spider-Man prints behind his head. That's one of his.
That's
if it's very dark, if it's lighter, I take her out into the TARDIS in the front garden. But sadly,
I saw your TARDIS. It's amazing. Is that an actual film used TARDIS?
I don't think it can be, but it was literally found abandoned in an East London junkyard, and no joke. And so I had it shipped over from there. So
that's beautiful, man.
I love it. Yeah, I saw that on social media. I love it.
That's awesome.
I'm not prepared anything at all, so you're blowing me away, all of you.
I mean, I had to close my closet doors for this, so there you go.
No.
Hey, David.
There we go. Dave Fowley, great film critic from Chicago, chiming in. It's good to hear from David. Absolutely. And
can I just say, your listeners are really helping my ego. The compliments that I'm getting of who I look like. Thank you.
We're proud of you, man. You got serious with your martial arts, and you look fight ready, man. I wouldn't mess with
fair. You're compared to all of us, and
the doughy threesome that we all represent. Unfortunately, oh good lord.
Hey man, this is National Donut Day, okay? So we have to represent somehow.
Good
John,
Lord.
you have to do our trick of hiding the chins with the beard. That's the way to go.
I can't get past the pupa stage of a beard.
John, I didn't think I could either, and I go for a while, and I'm happy with the result. So just let it go. Just let it go.
I hear you. Hey, Mark Lemming is even here. Man, another great UK man. Good Lord, Mark.
He's staying up late as well.
Jesus, man. Mark, you're going to be on the show eventually because we've done a million audios. I love your art, and we'll make a. As I told Rich, I didn't think Rich would be able to make it, and I'm like, oh, we'll do a Sunday afternoon. And I've talked to a lot of my favorite European creators to arrange for afternoon my time, evening their time, and stuff. If they're not sick already of doing so many shows on Zoom or StreamYard or the like and everything, so it's wonderful for me to hear from you, Mark. Take care of yourself. I'm a big fan, absolutely. So, Patrick, as a retailer, you can directly explain because honestly, I've both from the comments from the viewers and also and Sal as well. It's like explain your issues with this. Just explain your opinion of the current situation of now DC going to these alternate distributors exclusively.
Sure. Now, obviously, this announcement was just this morning, so it's very new. So we're still processing it, but it is automatically going to cause us a tremendous amount of extra work. One of the things we use is we have a point of sale system set up through Diamond. It's called Comic Suite, and it is built for importing their catalogs and their invoices, and it makes our subscription management really easy for anybody who orders out of a Diamond catalog, which most stores do, and most comic POS systems, Comic Hub, Mobi, Comic Suite, they're built off of importing Diamond's order files every month, so we can sign our subscribers up to the titles in the catalog. We import the invoices from the distributor. We can pull our subscribers based off of those lists. Now we're taking DC out of that equation, and we're not going to be able to do any of that. And so far, these two new distributors don't have any capacity for adapting to any point of sale system. Right. And that's not even talking about how it's going to be to order from now on, because we'll have to have, I don't know how we're going to be able to track our sales on the DC product that we get. B, even if we can, we'll have to have that open in a separate screen, bounce to whatever order system. And we haven't decided who we're going with. And we're not one of the stores that opened an account when they became available. We were going to stick it out and wait for Diamond. We're more comfortable with that. It's easier to use their systems with everything we have. So we don't even know who we're going to use. But it's just everything that DC says about this is better for the industry. It is worse for retailers across the board with the amount of extra work it's going to take, the amount of money we're going to lose just from higher shipping costs, and who we don't even know. And we're definitely not taking part in their Tuesday releases. We're sticking with Wednesdays because that's what the industry is to us. And it's all a whole bunch of unknowns, and we are not looking forward to this learning curve. Rich,
I know we're keeping you awake. So, are there any? I was going to say, do you have questions for Patrick that you want to throw at him?
Okay. Again, I don't know how much you can say on this. What do you see as the difference in terms of profit that you're making on a DC book now, as opposed to what it was, or what you will be with the new system?
Okay.
How much of an impact is it going to have with the extra extra costs?
That's an excellent question. I do not know. DC says that our discounts are going to stay the same.
Yeah.
That they are right now. However, here's the thing we just found out from this week, because with Diamond, your orders are based off of what you spend per publisher. So it's reevaluated, but how much you buy Marvel in previous months, that's your discount. Well, DC zeroed out all of our orders during the pandemic. So on the invoice we got this week for next week's product, all of those DC books that we're now getting, we've been dropped to the lowest possible DC discount because their algorithm looked and said, oh, you bought nothing the last few months. So we lost 20 percentage points of our discount for this new product. Apparently that's going to be corrected, but it takes a couple of weeks for that to happen. So that's an extra couple of weeks. And that's basically a difference of 40 cents per issue that we're being charged more. So that's happening right now. But as far as the extra costs, I can't answer that because I don't know. I don't know what shipping is going to be. I assume we're using Lunar because they're only one state away. But, I mean, we're not happy with either of these choices. We've heard that Lunar has a better fill rate and less damages, but I don't know that for a fact. And I've also heard that they ship through FedEx, so that can't be cheap. I mean, for as nebulous as Diamond's shipping costs can be at a certain point, they're never that bad, and we've been able to figure it out with outside help based off of delivery zones and product weight and things like that. So we kind of understand it. This is a completely unknown, but I expect it to be significantly higher.
Yeah, honestly, I've been to Diamond Retailer Summits through the graces of Patrick, who's allowed me to come in on his list and everything. And I've always liked to be a fly on the wall and hear retailers talk, and then both in the roundtables, the individual roundtables, or not individual, but like a handful of retailers all hearing from each publisher and also from Diamond reps, and then really even the big cattle call room where people are like, hey, I got 6 boxes from you last week, and one of them had 2 T-shirts in it, and the rest was empty, and they easily could have been put in one of the other 5 boxes. What the hell? And I get charged, for the extra box, and that's legit. I mean, I get it. I can appreciate that. And literally hearing, the guys all, well, this is what happened and we're sorry and, we'll look into it. So at least it always seems, and I'm sure that this will be the case with, and I will use, Lunar and UCS. I'm sure that they will be responsive. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Patrick. I mean, tell me as someone who has, really, how long has Challenger's been around? Over 10 years, sir?
12 years, yeah.
12 years. Okay. And again, I mentioned it before, and I'll say it for people that might be just popping in. Patrick is literally one of the top retailers in the country.
Thanks, man. Thank you, John.
Hey, this is all true, man. Spirit of Light recipient from Comic-Con, and then graduates to being one of the judges for other Spirit of Light retail, nominees. So, I mean, clearly, yeah, man. And you're a strong voice. And I know Rich and other news sites have come to you for comments before on what's happening in the industry and stuff. So yeah, for your 12 years, I mean, how have things been, working exclusively with Diamond?
Well, I mean, I've been in this industry for just about 30 years. So starting locally, we're using a distributor called Friendly Franks. Then we were using Capital. Then we switched over to Diamond before Capital sold. It's funny, Dal had pointed out that I've even forgotten this, that DC is the alpha and the omega of distribution, because it was during the Heroes World event that DC said, oh, we're going exclusive with Diamond over Capital City, and that was the death knell for Capital City. So that started Diamond being the main distributor, and now they're the ones that are basically ending it as well.
You're right. And, I should mention, yes, for that 30 years, Patrick, of course, spent a long time as one of the top managers of Graham Cracker Comics that, again, I think national fans will certainly be aware of Cracker's brand as well.
But as far as using Diamond exclusively, I mean, they definitely take a lot of blame for things that go wrong, and they do things wrong, but they definitely care about the industry and have actively been working to make it better. And we just got to a point in the last couple of years where using their point of sale system and all the things that we do really worked well for us. And it was gelling to a point where we'd considered Comic Hub on 2 different occasions and eventually chose not to, because we like what we were doing with Comic Suite, and we're going on that path. But now that's all moot.
Yeah. Has any of these online ordering systems announced that they're going to align with UCS or Lunar or anything?
No, because I do know that Stu Colson reached out to them and said, hey, how can we incorporate all this into Comic Hub? And they never got back to them. But I mean, they're new at this as well. Like, they had a week to set up their distribution. And for everybody that says, oh, do you think like Image or Dark Horse or Marvel will go to these new distributors? Diamond has had decades to build this infrastructure that they have, and they have these massive warehouses and this massive staff. I don't think these 2 new distributors have the manpower to take on anybody else currently. And I think everybody would suffer if they tried.
Yeah. There was something you were mentioning there about the POS. It just maybe just reminded me what we're also going to see is a big break, because when Diamond came over, what you then had was an industry-wide chart, sales figures. We knew that's going away because you can't compare DC Comics to anybody else anymore.
No.
Interesting.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Wow.
Those things something that we take for granted is going to go.
Well, and it isn't that interesting again, Rich, because you and I are media people. How that's changed. I don't know in the British systems, but here in the States, obviously the streamers don't tell us the numbers of their viewers, and it's already happened in radio ratings as well, where they've pulled back, and what used to be public knowledge no longer is in terms of business to business, how these things are doing. And isn't it interesting now that we're about to see that happen with the comics we've taken for granted? So, hi, Jan Jones.
Oh, hey, Jan.
Hey, John, can I jump in just a second? I've been kind of going back and forth with Christina.
With Christina?
And
this is great, man. We should send her the link if she wants to jump in.
I asked her if she wanted to jump in, but I think she's watching. But
okay, hey, Christina.
She says she can't, but she did say that Stu did not reach out to them, and that Cameron reached out to Stu tonight. So I don't know. That's her response to what Patrick had said there. But and honestly,
Stu had said he reached out immediately when this happened, but
earlier,
I'm not going to argue either way because I wasn't involved.
I remember this. I did the same. There was definitely some levels of miscommunication. Not everyone knew the right way to contact people. Some things got delayed. I didn't use the right system initially to contact them as well. So there may have been some initial miscommunication. Hopefully that's getting fixed now.
And I'll take this opportunity because I intended to send Christina an email after we're done broadcasting tonight. But if you are watching, Christina, I would love to talk to you about this and then truly get your point of view on all of this. And I have a tremendous, as I've said already in this podcast and video cast, I have tremendous respect for you, Cameron, and the entire DCBS business. And you've been a great friend to Word Balloon over the years. And I would love to offer you the forum to talk about this stuff as best as you can. And even if it takes a few days for things to settle, because again, I can appreciate that this is all new information on all sides and everyone is trying to figure this out. It is a big shift. We knew big shifts were coming with all of these changes from the pandemic and also what's happening at AT&T and Disney for that matter as well. I mean, the big two are doing this stuff. It's very interesting. And we knew that things were going to change because of the current status quo. So we're all trying to figure it out. And I would love to hear from you when you have
I'm curious if the new distributors had a heads up on this, because Diamond just got the word from DC today that they were terminating their contract. But I wonder if the other distributors knew ahead of time, just out of curiosity.
I don't know.
Well, they would have had to have agreed to it. So because that's quite a big increase.
I would kind of think so.
Orders. So I would have thought.
Yeah, that's true. There's a huge influx coming now.
Yeah.
Well, when we talked to her originally, I asked her that question, and I got the sense that she wasn't sure because she's like, yeah, it's it's an opportunity, but it's also a tremendous amount of work for us. This is, it's like we're a successful retailer. We weren't necessarily looking to become a distributor, and it's hard to necessarily turn it down. But at the same time, and I'm paraphrasing, and this is not her direct quotes or anything like that. The sense that I got was like, we'll see, so I don't know how much, notice they got or how much was in the works beforehand. But she seemed almost hesitant because of the amount of work involved in it. And you can hear the whole interview on our show, but I don't want to try and I'll obviously screw up what she said because I don't remember it. It was 2 weeks ago. But
did this come up at all in the conversation, Brian? Because I remember a couple of years ago, last time I had Christina on was right after she became president of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, and she was talking about moving DCBS to another state.
Well, that happened, and it didn't work out.
So they did come back to. They came back to
Indiana. Yeah,
okay.
They were there briefly, but I don't think it worked out well. She mentioned it briefly. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was wondering about that too, and obviously, as well, I know that Lunar was set up as an Indiana company and everything, so that's fine, and that's where I was curious because, Brian and I don't know if Patrick, if you've ever been there, but we were certainly at their warehouse and everything. And I can appreciate it. And again, she knows her logistics better than I do, but it did certainly seem, based on their infrastructure and being a mail order business, that they were pretty well equipped to become a distributor. But then again, that's hundreds of subscribers versus, and I don't even know what their subscription list is like compared to trying to serve 2,400 North American stores plus possibly international stores, And
I was there once. There was a convention in the area, and they had an after party one night. The warehouse setup was great. I had a fun time when I was there.
Yeah, it's a cool setup. What were you going to say, Rich?
No, I was just reminded how these things kind of happened all at once. How I worked out that UCS and Midtown was the same company was that I emailed UCS and I got an out of office email from Midtown. I thought, that'd be why. So a lot of this stuff really did come as a surprise to a lot of people. Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure just how much could have been planned. So
there you go. Yes, Adidas. That's right. Indiana to Tennessee. Back to Indiana. I'm sure Jim Neighbors back home from Indiana was playing as they crossed the state line and got back there.
Well, golly.
Jeez. More of the comments about how attractive I am. I really appreciate it.
It's that awesome. I didn't want to. I saw your head getting bigger as we were talking.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't want you to find you.
He's going to hate me after this.
Yeah, they apparently the word balloon video audience loves Brian Salazar. I look forward to you being on the cover of Sweet 16 and Tiger Beat next month.
Yeah, I'm a little old for that, John.
I have to cancel my subscriptions.
That's awesome, guys. What else to say?
I have a question for Patrick. You were talking about the POS system that's from Diamond.
Yes.
Is that so? Like importing data into that is that a proprietary system? Is that spreadsheet? Is that something that
it's based on? It's a Microsoft RMS, which isn't a supported platform anymore. So somebody bought it and upgraded it to a system called Microsoft RMH, Retail Management Hero. But Diamond's specific plugin is called Comic Suite, and it's for inventory management. It's for subscription and special orders, and it's so easy. Like, when you get your order in, you just download your invoice, and all the information is there. So, proprietary.
Is there a way to import outside data at all? Oh, and I have a second question, but go ahead and answer that.
Oh no, yes, if given in CSV files, or you can do everything manually, which certainly isn't any fun. But that's a way to get your product into the inventory. It doesn't help us for ordering or subscription. So that part is only tracking something that you've sold, but you can't reorder it because all the reorders are directly to Diamond. Like when you're out of a book, it'll automatically send a reorder to Diamond, not to Penguin Random House, not to Lunar, not to any other distributor.
So do you not use any other distributors for any other products other than Diamond?
We use a lot of other distributors as restock. Like, we'll do initial orders from Diamond for everybody's stuff, but then we will use like Ingram or other sources to restock the product that Diamond is out of. But most of it is stuff that we initially got from Diamond, so it exists in the system already. Or when we buy stuff from local creators, or small, or like our poster vendor is Poster Emporium, we have to import those items by hand one at a time.
And do toys come from Diamond as well? Because I know the previous catalog certainly does have Diamond toys.
Yeah, yes and no. Unfortunately, the toys come as a case lot, but you want to break them up by individual unit, so you still have to do a lot of individual entry. And we get most of our toys from different distributors and not from Diamond.
Okay.
Have you considered any other POS systems, like Square or something that, would fold into your website, that kind of thing as well?
Well, we do use Square for the website, and we use Shopify for the website, and they have their own built-in POS stuff as well. But Square doesn't handle subscription management and special order control and pulls lists. Square is a thing that we would, if Diamond goes away, we would switch to Square and just figure everything else out. But like I said earlier, we had tried to switch over to Comic Hub. Even at the beginning of the pandemic, Like we tried about 4 years ago, and Stu was actually in Chicago and ran through it, and we liked it, but it just didn't work for us. We thought, all right, it's 4 years later, and they have the option of getting your entire store online. So we're like, yes, let's do this while we're closed. And it still didn't work the way we run our business, so we passed on it. And then we used Diamond's Shopify plugin to get our inventory up online and have a separate store for that. So yes, we have considered other POS systems, but again, those other the industry ones are dependent on Diamond. The other industry ones don't do the things we need them to do.
I like this comment from MP. Starting immediately, zero DC promotion in store and on social media. We're going to be forced to order their product, but we will push Marvel and Image harder and harder. And then as a contrast, Adidas, BB says DCBS's website is pretty nice. They allow for Excel uploads.
Okay, so, well, that's a thing that we haven't discovered yet because we haven't chosen anybody, but I'm going off of what other retailers had told us. And I'll admit, our knee-jerk reaction was to say, hey, you know what? DC Comics now, club only, that's it. But the people that shop with us, they don't care where the books come from. They shouldn't get caught in the middle of this. Just because we're angry and we're having to spend more money and we're hurt doesn't mean they should suffer.
So, is there another industry that exists where consumers know more about who's distributing products than comics? I don't think it's a majority of the consumers. I think it's a very, well, I hate to say vocal minority, but there's so many people who shop with us who have no idea who even the publishers are of the books. And why should they? If they want to read Saga, they don't have to know that it's Image or that we get it from Diamond. They just have to know that it's on the shelf.
And again, they're not aware of the specific needs and concerns of a retailer. They think a lot of comic book fans think they know, and they really don't. And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation. Forgive me, Patrick. Continue.
Oh, sure. I've heard of retailers who today immediately sent letters to all their subscribers saying, look at this horrible thing DC is doing to us. You know, we don't want to order their books, but what do you want us to do? And again, our customers don't have to know that. Like if they ask, we'll tell them. If we're particularly angry one day and they're in the store, we'll tell them. If they say, hey, why you guys sold out of this week's Batman? We'll tell them. But we're not going to advertise it and make it a selling point and a focal point of our business. Maybe we won't promote them in store as much. Sure, fine, whatever. But rather than trash one company, just build somebody else up. There's no reason to throw somebody on the bus, under the bus, or on the bus and light it on fire, whatever. There's riots now. There's so many other things to be positive about, and just shift the focus to somebody else.
Well, why would you? I mean, I understand that there's headaches are involved for you that I can't understand. I'm not a retailer. I don't. That's not my day-to-day business. But I mean, why would you take that initial reaction in any way of we're going to promote this publisher less because they're making a change? I mean, I understand that there's an initial hard time involved with this. This isn't something you're looking forward to having to deal with. But I mean, in 6 months or 8 months or a year from now, if everything is working fine and your store selling Batman comics, is this going to matter at that point?
Hopefully not. But it's okay to have a gut reaction where you're like, hey, this is going to cost me money and cost so much time. The amount of time DC has already wasted for us in the last couple of weeks for every order they zeroed out, that ruined every subscriber order. And then when we were able to go back on final order cutoffs to say, oh, you can actually order these books, well, suddenly none of those subscriptions filled because those books were canceled. So we had to go back through the history of those books and figure at a time hundreds of subscribers per book to say who got what book and who needed them. And then, Sal, we had to add each person to that title as a special order. So that means I have to go into your account and say, okay, Brian Salazar needs Batman number 92. Brian Salazar needs Batman number 93. Brian Salazar needs Batman number 94. We can't just say you're down for Batman because the system says you didn't order those books. You don't have them coming. Okay. We have them coming, but they're not listed as initial orders. They're back orders, and those have to be special orders. And that has been days worth of work, only to find out now that all of that is wasted time because all those orders we just put in, they're gone. So it's not just a little extra work. It has been weeks of work just to get to the point where they said, hey, fuck you, none of it matters anymore. It's all over. and now we have to figure out
They
how
tell
to do
you
it.
at the beginning to. I mean, didn't DC tell you to make an account with one of these two distributors in the
No,
beginning?
they said you could also wait for Diamond. And we knew that Diamond was coming back in a week and a half from when all these distributors started. So why would we set up a new account for a week and a half?
Well, let me ask you this then: what can DC or DCBS or Lunar or whoever? What can they do to fix this?
Have a way that their system works with point of sale systems across the board. Like most of these systems, I'm sure, and I'm not the technical part of this, you would be better at this than I would, but have a way that it works where we could import their information and manage it in the same system and not have to pull out spreadsheets, not have to go to cycle sheets like we did back in the 90s.
Well, I think that's an opportunity for me. I got to get working.
Do it.
I gotta figure out how to fix this for you guys, and
we'd love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Look, man, you're no stranger to working with us. You built our second iteration of our website. We know what you're capable of. Get on it.
No, I think there's absolutely. I mean, like I said, I'm talking to Christina, and I told her, I'm like, listen, I think there's a lot of retailers out there that are feeling very negative about this. I think that there has to be something done about this. I think just from an optics standpoint, you have a lot of negativity going on right now from this announcement, and they have to understand that retailers, one, are looking at this as like, holy crap, there's a whole lot of extra work. Two, now I'm dealing with my competitors, basically. There's all these things, and it can't just be business as usual. It has to be. I mean, they have to reach out. They can't sit back. I think it's a mistake as a marketer, which is what I am. I think it's a mistake to sit back and wait and put out fires. I think they have to be proactive. DC has to be proactive. I think Midtown has to be proactive. I think DCBS has to be proactive. I don't know what the challenges are involved with them either. As we've discussed, this is new for everybody, for them, for you. So I don't know if they even have the capacity to do that, but if they do, I think they have to. And I think internationally, DC has to figure out a solution for that. It's ridiculous. It's insane to think that international dealers are going to somehow pay 30, 40, 50% more than what they're paying now and survive in any way selling DC comics. And, you guys, there has to be some sort of solution, stopgap solution with a plan, and it has to be articulated to you guys. This is what we're going to do. This is how you're going to use the system that you've been using for the last decade. This is how you're going to keep your customers happy. It's all about communication. You can't just sit back and go, well, this is the change we're making, and deal with it.
I agree 100%. And everything you've just said is right. And I know that these new distributors are at as much of a loss as we are, because this is all thrust upon them. Communication is what DC has not had anything of this entire time, and they're only doling out information as they need it. They keep saying this is part of a long-term plan. This is for the best. This is for the best of the industry, but they're not telling us how or how they came to that. They're not showing us our work. Like, we would love to be a part of these conversations and see how they got to this point. And I'll be honest, Lunar is the distributor closest to us. We'll probably use them. And I hope everything you said comes true. And we would love to have a working relationship that benefits us and doesn't disrupt our business as much as it looks like it's going to. And again, I don't blame them. They're in a tough position as well, but I have to look out for my best interests as everybody else does.
Sure.
Can I ask, Patrick, has the cutting of titles that both the big two have been doing and switching to digital only, is that impacting your sales at your store? I don't know how those books were selling at your shop or even in general.
For like Hawkeye is a book that did well for us, and we'll be sad to see it go. The new Ant-Man series was really, really good, even though it didn't sell. I understand why they did it. And honestly,
sure.
To use something that Sal had said before, what other industry would still keep saying, hey, this doesn't work, we're going to keep going? Look at TV shows. You get one episode, and if your ratings are bad, you're pulled. Yep. It doesn't matter that they made 4 or 5 more episodes. They just don't air them. So I get it. I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, oh, more rack space. But on the other hand, you got several people in our store alone who are buying these titles who now have to make a choice of, do I just give up or do I have to spend more money to buy half of what I already have to finish the story?
Yeah, I understand.
Well, my suggestion to any retailer out there, if DC doesn't answer these questions for you, then you have to think that DC doesn't give a shit about retailers, that they're going for bookstores and mass market and online, and they don't care about local comic shops anymore, and you guys are going to have to pivot accordingly.
Right, and we don't think that they do. However, a lot of this, and I've got a lot of friends at DC, like I feel bad for them because I don't think that these are DC's decisions. I think this is coming from above. And on the one hand, I think, is this DC's plan to get rid of their periodical publishing department? On the other hand, you know what? Just license all your characters and get out. If you don't want to do it, sell Batman to somebody else. Let Batman comics exist.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Because again, the two sides of the coin, as the television shows continue to innovate and are incredible, the movies that seem to, for the missteps and everything, Wonder Woman a step in the right direction, certainly Aquaman a step in the right direction. And I think the potential of HBO Max and the different projects along with the Snyder Cut that they're proposing, and then you flip over to the comic book side and you see this kind of these very abrupt changes, and it's very herky jerky. There's I don't know.
Yeah, who would have thought that? It feels like a decade ago, readers were saying, I don't want to keep waiting. I want everything at once. But who would have thought that the television industry would get there first?
What was your facial expression about Aquaman, Rich?
I'm not a fan of the film.
That's all right.
That's me. Sorry, I know
it did great. I thought it was. I didn't think it was anything spectacular. I was just amazed at how well it did. And that's the thing. It's like we'll see. And I guess we'll see if there is a sequel or whatever. I'm fascinated by whatever directions the movies go into now. And I've asked television people why they haven't. I'm like, is there any reason why Berlanti and company don't just slide over and start making movies? They seem to have the secret recipe of how to do this stuff right, and I haven't been able to get a straight answer. I don't know if you have, Rich.
Not a clue.
There you go. Absolutely, man.
I know the comics things, all this film and television.
Yeah, I can appreciate. You cover that stuff. Don't be silly.
I like my images to stay still. Stay still.
Yeah, Rich, but you see all the movies before anybody else does.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Hey, John.
I love that you always do like, hey, I'm going to see this movie now. And then you're like, you can ask me questions later, but not about story points. And I always just want you to say right away, do you like it or not?
Some people do. Some people do ask that question. Honestly, the truth is, I asked that thing because I'm going to write a review and I want to know what people want to know. So I get all those little things and I shove them into the review somewhere. It's just it's actually material for me. I'm just looking to do things for my advantage. Sorry. But it works.
Sure.
Were you going to say something, Sal?
I wanted to see if we could address a particular comment by MP. He had said something about. He said, "Don't expect them to be proactive in our favor. It's to their benefit for us to be SOL. Midtown or DCBS can just target our customers by zip code on social media when they see a hot title in my area. They can do that already if they want to. It may not be by title necessarily, but what hot titles are every month. You can target by zip code. You can look up any shop in the country in Google and social media. You can target them. So they can already do that. I don't think this really necessarily, if that's what their tactics are, which I don't know if they are or not. But if it was, they could already do that. I could do that today.
Yeah. The one thing that gets me, and I don't think I've had this addressed, is do Midtown and DCBS get the same deal from UCS and Luna that other stores do?
That's a good question.
I don't know if they do. If suddenly there's a big, occasionally things get allocated, do DCBS and Midtown get a different allocation now that they're distributors than other stores do? I don't know.
Right, and I don't think we will know.
No.
Yeah, I'll have to.
I was just reminded there was a back in the day when Wizard magazine used to do Like they used to sell comic books as well. They used to like get these, and there was the one where they'd get advanced plot stories. It was the death of Captain America. That was it. Well, that was a big thing in Civil War, as it became a huge, big hot book. It was a surprise book, and Wizard had tons of them, more than anybody else, and it was kind of like, because you knew about this, and all the other retailers who'd like to have known about this didn't. But Wizard was in a position to basically fill their warehouses and then pump them out. And that's once that happened, it was like, oh yeah, of course that's going to happen.
Sure, it's the comic book version of insider trading.
Sure. Well, and again, that's the only thing that kind of makes me uncomfortable about Midtown and DCBS becoming distributors and staying retailers, because as Rich pointed out earlier, when Diamond became a distributor, Jeppy got rid of his stores. I mean, it's
he felt he couldn't have the, he couldn't be a good businessman. Now things might be
conflict
different.
of interest. Sure,
they may be different. They may be different walls. It may not even be an issue, but it's the thing that did kind of jump out of me is what happens now, because that hasn't been addressed.
It comes down to it's the same thing as being a retailer and a reader. If we get shorted a book and I'm subscribed to it, and we don't have enough for club, I have to decide, do I skip me or do I make sure I get my copy and short somebody else? And that is just the micro version of the macro. Do the distributors make sure they're taken care of first? Honestly, if I was a distributor and a store, I can't say that I wouldn't make sure I was taken care of first. But it's a case-by-case basis. Like,
Patrick, you worked for a large chain of comics before you opened your own store.
Yeah.
That was in my opinion, one of the leaders of sort of pushing variant covers and marking up, that kind of stuff. Was that something that they did as a chain? I'm sure they had a certain amount of buying power. Were those tactics? And
luckily, I got out right as the variant cover market was really picking up, and you see that we don't do any of that at Challengers. So I'll say that as a statement. I can say that when I worked for the other store, like the managers, everybody had a separate account. So nothing, like you got your books for your store. It wasn't out of a main pool that had to get split up. So you got your books at your store. So everybody didn't necessarily know what everybody else had. I do imagine at this point they have ways around that with as many accounts as they have, that they could make it so they get the right number that they want of variants, right, if they choose to go that way. If I'm being diplomatic enough in that description.
Well, I haven't. Christina must still be watching because she keeps texting me every once in a while. She just said, we treat our accounts all the same. We have an allocation formula that allocates by percentage. So if something has to be allocated, it is a flat percentage allocation.
That's great. That's great.
We pick orders based on location. So DCBS is actually the last account to be picked.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad that she's following along with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Christina, seriously, I appreciate you watching and commenting. And again, I look forward to a longer conversation when you're able to talk about this more, because and again, she
says she would love to come on, right? She can't right now. She's still verifying accounts and answering emails. So she must be watching as she's doing it.
I'm sure she's got a busy couple of weeks ahead of her as well.
Absolutely.
Can I just say now, Christine's watching, love your bubble wrap. I've had so many people email me, all the stores who, we just love the Luna bubble wrapping. They love it.
Hey man, this is why I meant what Brian and I saw, and Patrick, I don't know if you saw it as well, but truly, we've known that for a long time. Again, they've been in DCBS was an original Word Balloon sponsor, literally the first, an incredible friend to comic book podcasters up and down the spectrum. And I know Sal, again, it's the same with Around Comics, and yeah, they've always done right by us. And again, I've appreciated the way they've packed books, whether it was for DCBS or in stock trades. They give a damn. They want the stuff to, come in a great way. So I'm not surprised that they're still using high-end bubble wrap.
I've not published quite as many photos of bubble wrap in the last few months than ever before. That's all down to them. So thank you.
Here, I want Christina to see this. I'm a DCBS in-stock trade loyalist. If somehow this ends up with customers not getting these discounts, that's going to be a big problem for me. Please, Christina, don't ever change. So there you go. I understand.
On the counter side of that is I live in a place where there's, within reasonable driving distance, there's a couple of comic shops, and I don't shop at either of them because they're not very good. And if Patrick's shop was closer to me, I would be there every week, and I would be buying comics because he runs a great comic book shop, and I still love going into a comic book shop and talking to people. I mean, we used to do our podcast from Challengers.
That's true.
And because of the atmosphere and being there, and so while we're praising DCBS, and I love Christine and those guys, and DCBS does a great job, the local comic shop offers you something else, and if it wasn't a horrible commute for me to go into the city every week and try and get comics, I would be there every week because
I appreciate that.
Guys like Patrick run amazing shops, but here's the other side of it. There are too many bad shops. There are not enough Patricks out there. There are not enough Challengers out there. There are bad shops, and I think a lot of them are complaining about this because they don't want to have to put in extra effort. They're happy with what they're doing, and I said this on our podcast. I think you have fans that have opened shops that are not business owners, that are not marketers, and they love comics, but they don't necessarily know how to run a business. And when things change and you have to put in extra effort, and running a business is not an easy thing. Patrick, I'm sure you'll be the first person to say that. It's not fun, but at the same time, if you do it well, you're going to be successful. And if you don't do it well, when tough times come, you're going to fail.
The only issue is that this is a really tough time for every retailer right now, not just comics. And we spent the majority of the pandemic getting our Shopify store running, which took a lot of work. It's a great system. We love it. And then our new location in River North got looted 6 times last Saturday night.
Yeah.
And so that store is still in shambles, and we're trying to put that back together. I'm sidelined right now, so Dow's doing everything. So the idea of all this extra work happening right now, when we're still worried about stores being looted and protests happening all around the world, it's just bad timing.
Yeah, man. No, I get it. Absolutely. And yeah, Patrick, I mean, God, again, you last year you guys expand and with the best intentions and making another great store in a different location in the city. And then really, I feel for you guys, man. I mean, you're owed a gross of rabbit's feet to make that luck change that you guys have been.
You know what? Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the change we need. Change is inevitable. We've never shied away from it. Like when we first opened, we didn't have a point of sale system. We're using a cash register. It was at a trade show somewhere in 2009 where we first looked at Diamond's Comic Suite system. We said, yeah, we want this. And that was a steep learning curve. And we learned it. And now we love it. And we know that, just like if you use Facebook, they're going to change the layout eventually. You have to learn a new layout. Fine, it's going to happen. We're not opposed to it, but usually you're trading up to something better. And right now, we hope this is better, but we don't see it as better yet because we have too many unanswered questions.
This is
real fast. I just want to throw this up there before. Forgive me, Sal. Does Challengers have a GoFundMe? I'd love to help them out.
No, we don't believe in GoFundMes for the stores because we don't want to take money from people without giving them something. Like if you want to go to challengers-comics.myshopify.com and you can buy stuff from our web store, great. We'll take your money that way. But we don't want people just to give us money. But thank you for asking that.
Absolutely. Forgive me, Sal. Continue.
No, I was going to say, this is certainly no comfort to the issues and problems that you're dealing with, Patrick, but I think it does illustrate in some ways the problem with a monopoly, with Diamond and the practices that they created. And while the tools they gave you were beneficial, it also now is a problem because they were doing it to do exactly this, to make it hard for anyone to leave them. To give you those tools that to use a point of sale system that Diamond created and your subscriber system that Diamond created. It's a problem. That's the problem with a monopoly is and they use those things to lock you in, to make it harder to leave and to not create competition. Like I said, that's no comfort to you now. I'm just pointing it out because it is sort of a thing that's what a monopoly does. That's the tactics they use to make it that much harder to leave them.
Patrick, I was going to ask regarding the podcast and what else you might be doing, because Challengers, as we said, is a great store for community and the events that you would have and the reading groups and everything else. Are you able to maintain that community online with the various platforms that social media allows? And again, you guys do a great podcast as well every week. So.
Well, one of the things we were doing during the shelter in place was a bunch of really stupid Instagram videos highlighting books, but also like they were dumb fun. But that's what put me on the shelf, because I had an accident doing one of those, and you can see a crutch in the background. I was at the store this week on Wednesday for 4 hours, but that was my first time in a month, and I've still got like a month to go before I can hopefully be up and around. So yeah, sometimes the best of intentions don't work out well. But no, we try to keep the online community going. We've still been in touch with, like, we have a weekly email newsletter for anybody, and we have a weekly email newsletter for subscribers. Those were active the whole time. Not a day went by in the quarantine that we didn't get questions and emails from customers about things, and that's just reassuring that they still want their books. We've been open again for 3 days, and they've been a good 3 days, but that's because the majority of the people who are coming in have like 3 months of books waiting for them, so their totals are high. Our number of people coming in is less, but we expect it to be less. We expect it to be less for a while. Like, it's still like people aren't safe. Some of our employees aren't safe coming back, and that is fine. We don't want anybody in the store until they're comfortable. We'll still do curbside pickup for anybody who doesn't want to come in the store. That's fine. So I think, John, to answer your question, we've been as active as possible without, sometimes like too active. Sometimes it's a little tough to answer the same questions over and over. Like today is a day where I had like 100 messages of people saying, what are you going to do about DC? We found out when you found out, people. We're figuring it out as we go along.
Sure. No, I understand.
The podcast helps us stay in touch with people and let them know what we're thinking and peek behind the curtain of these decisions. And a lot of these decisions Dow and I make together as we're recording. So it's getting out there almost in real time. It's like 2 days before we put it up, but they at least get to be a fly on the wall for the process.
When are you going to put out the podcast you recorded today? Literally, you guys were recording before you came out.
Yeah. Sunday night. It goes up every Sunday night.
Sounds good. Dan Wickline, one of your contributors, Rich, has a question. Are we seeing where DC is going, or it used to be? I'm sorry, former contributor.
Oh, you see, he's a proper writer now. He's
forgive me, Dan. Of course you are. I apologize. My question is: are we seeing where DC is going, or is this just one step, and there will continue to be change for a while?
I think it's one step. They've been doing one step at a time this whole time.
Absolutely.
Every Friday.
They have a plan. Yeah, exactly. Every Friday news dump. The last 3 weeks.
Sure.
Yeah.
They have a plan.
That's right.
We just have no idea what it is. And by the end, we still won't really know.
There's way more than 6 of them, though.
They are silent. Absolutely. That's amazing. But not as good looking as the Galactica Cylons, unfortunately.
Some of them.
Anyway. Yeah.
Hey, I'm worried about the people that work there, because this could be the death knell for the. I guarantee you that their sales go down dramatically from this, and I don't just mean from like, oh, we're not going to order their books, but I mean in general they're going to take a big hit, and I don't know that they're going to be able to afford. Like, if sales drop, how do you afford not only their employees, but how do you afford the editors? How do you afford people like Tom King or people like Greg Capullo or Scott Snyder? Like this is a slippery slope, and
graphic novel sales are up.
Well, that's I think the top creatives are going to be safe, but as someone who just suffered a downsizing at CBS News, as I did back in April, I would say that I think there are a lot of editors, and it's something that Heidi McDonald has made a point of many times. Look at the masthead on a DC comic, and all the vice presidents and all the various people that are credited. And it's like, again, this is in no way meant to be disrespectful to those people, but it's like, man, that sounds like a lot of the same jobs, but are being handled with different titles. And boy, and again, with AT&T coming in, and I think truly taking a very hard corporate look and a very cold look, I think you're right, man. I think a lot of people are in fear of their jobs right now.
It's always been interesting to compare DC and Marvel in that degree, because Marvel have far fewer staff for the amount of books they put out. And also, generally, from what I understand, Marvel pay less for editorial staff as well. So it's kind of like there's, you look where the money lies. Yeah, DC can sometimes look a little bit on the heavy side.
There you go. Oh, that's really nice. Forgive me, guys. I will put this up because Denny is like, John, are you okay? Any way we can support you? Hey, subscribe to the podcast via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. I'm surprised I forgot to put up the crawl. There we go. There's my little commercial right there.
He's the best of the business, folks.
There you go.
The voice of the comics industry.
That's right.
Oh, stop, boys. That's lovely, but no, I'm honestly, I appreciate it, Deanie. I'm doing okay, and it's because of really Aftershock, a great sponsor for me from a publisher standpoint, that have stood by me and everything. I expected them to say, hey, we're pencils down. I'm like, hey, I understand if you're not putting out books. Like, no, we need you out there pumping the brand. I'm like, okay, great. They're like, business as usual. Fantastic. And truly, the League of Word Balloon listeners via Patreon have been incredible. And that's why I always throw up the logo now at the beginning of the show to thank them for the support, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you for asking. And yeah, so if you want to support Word Balloon, that's great. But support your stores, man. I mean, they really again, I think a lot of stores right now are really living on a thin margin right now. So help them out, and I think that's great. And so thank you. I don't know what else to say, but guys, we're at 2 hours. I mean, and then poor Rich. Good Lord, man, are you okay?
I'm good.
All right. What I mean, honestly,
okay, good. Because Rich, I wanted to go back to what you said about graphic novels, and while you're right, the sales are up, but it's not on books like Red Hood and the Outlaws or Green Lantern. Like a lot of the mid-range DC books don't do anything. It's only their event books that do really well. And I don't know that they can sustain that.
They do pretty well in bookstores.
Do they? All right.
Yeah, more than they were. There's been a big jump. Not so much for manga, but for a lot of graphic novels and superhero books, we've seen over the last couple of months a definite double-figure jump.
That's great. That's just not anything that we see. It's only the main event books for DC and Marvel that go.
Gotcha. No,
but those go great. Like those make up for it. But we don't even carry like Nightwing graphic novels when they come out anymore. Like not counting Zoom or Ink books.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair enough. But I got to say that I am very, very aware of a very large Nightwing graphic novel buying population, possibly not in your store, but they definitely do exist.
All right.
We'll be publishing them. But sales are kind of up a bit.
Good.
So
that's good.
Whether it's enough, I don't know.
Rich, you had mentioned before about the other markets that I think DC is looking at. You look at books like Smile and that kind of thing, the YA market, and this could be that push into that they're looking at bigger dollars in that market. That unfortunately, it's all about money. It's all about
Yes, it is.
If the only reason the direct market has survived is because of dollars, because it's made the most sense to.
Yeah.
But AT&T as a corporation coming in, they're looking at the bottom line every quarter. That's all they care about. Unfortunately, they don't care about the medium. There are people certainly at DC Comics, they care about the medium, but AT&T does not care about the medium of comics. All they care about is the bottom line. And so they're looking at, okay, how do we make the most money? Well, currently the biggest sales for comics are in the YA market, and that's not single issues through comic book shops. That's
right.
So it's funny coming into this conversation or after the initial announcement of this, I was sort of like Pollyanna-ish and going, "Oh, this will be good. This is competition. We've been complaining about Diamond forever." And now I'm sort of on the other side of it going, this is not good for comic book stores. This is a bad thing for comic book stores. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we're all wrong in that. I hope DC, I hope that isn't the plan. I really hope that is not the plan.
there's something else, but I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, that's my sense as well. Yeah.
So to go back what you said about the YA market, I don't know that that's their philosophy, because they put all this effort and years in developing their Zoom and their ink lines, and then like every book publisher, they had books in the pipeline for the next couple of years, and then as soon as those books start coming out, they're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're scrapping those entire lines.
No,
rolling them
they
in.
are.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Calling them Zoom or Ink. But
Right,
there's more
exactly,
and more of them.
exactly, Patrick. Yeah,
They
that's
just
what
call
happened.
them DC.
Right,
Yeah.
but it means it feels like all the I know they're still making it, but it feels like they took all that publishing publicity behind it and just said, no, now they're just part of regular DC universe, and they don't seem as special anymore, and they don't seem as branded.
That could, I mean, honestly, when you're dealing with a corporate world, that could be simply VPs and executives that want their thumbprint on things. So they come in and they see something and they go, even though it's successful, we're going to change it so that it's mine.
But even just to simplify it all, honestly, and say you're just confusing people by having different imprints. It's a DC.
I was made aware, that the Pamela Lifford and people said too many imprints. It confuses people, and they use imprints just for age verification, just different ages and things. I think you can tell what were the Zoom books, what were the Ink books compared to the other DC Universe books. I think there's a different style, there's a different approach to the actual books. So I don't think there's much market confusion.
Sure, but don't you? Don't you think that you don't think that confuses the consumers?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't think consumers at all. I mean, again, because you can see the books that are doing well in the bookstores. They're definitely of that ilk, and they're definitely being marketed in that fashion. They're being marketed to bookstores and people like that, saying this is YA stuff, this is middle grade stuff, this is kids stuff. The consumer doesn't need to know that. The books, the bookstores will put them in those places. The bookstores will line them up. Amazon will line them up with a different
could that be a
markets and stuff. So that all gets done, but that gets done behind the scenes. It doesn't rely on an imprint to make that clear.
Would you say so?
Could that be? I mean, Scholastic obviously is one of the biggest here in the U.S. Could that be something that they're, sort of presenting or telling DC like this is confusing to us. We want Batman. Kids don't care. The end buyer in that market don't care one way or the other, whether it's an imprint, whether it's DC, but they want Batman. They want Wonder Woman. They want the characters that are popular, the kids may want, but in a fashion, in a format that is going to be for them. So that could it be driven from just the market sort of pushing back and going, well, we don't want something that's not connected to DC Comics.
I don't think it was that logical. I think it was a specific decision that was like, no, that's too complex. Let's just make it like this.
Well, and also, I've gone to ALA conventions, American Library Association conventions, and I don't know, Sal, if you've had a chance to go to any of those shows. Incredibly eye-opening at the way the comic publishers present themselves to the librarians, and it's slightly different than what you were saying, but I mean, it's and there's genuine excitement from the libraries to have these properties and have them in YA form, and these other and the novels, even not novelizations, but actual original novels that are licensed and everything. Del Rey, and I know Del Rey did Batman books during the Nolan movies that were very good. And I mean, that's the thing. I really think in general, DC just, really has kind of taken a look and said, we need to be there. And also this is growing young readers. God, I literally had Mike Morisi on the video show last night. I haven't released the audio yet. Likely when I release this, I'll also release Morisi's conversation about the Dick Grayson Lost Carnival book. It's a fantastic book. And I mean, yeah, it's a YA book, but and I guess from a hardcore continuity standpoint, because Robin was, 8 to 12, depending on which version of the origin you want to read. And this is a teenage Dick Grayson. It could easily have been a Dick Grayson story before meeting Batman. It's consistent with the character. It's an excellent read. It's well drawn. It's interesting. They're going to, not in the case of Morisi, but the artist, and the artist's name right now escapes me, but they're getting these new artists to do these things in a YA style, and they have pros like Phil Hester breaking down the panels for them to show these new artists, okay, this is the way to translate your art into comic book form. It's greatly helpful, and Phil's been on the record talking about having this role at DC in the last couple of years and stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting, and yeah, I just think it is that simplification of a brand and saying, yeah, it's Batman, so of course it's DC. You know, that simplicity. So,
well, then I blame Raina Telgemeier for all of this. It's her
100%.
fault. It's her fault.
Yeah,
She created this problem for all of us.
Not just her, Dav Pilkey as well. Don't forget him. But absolutely,
Yeah.
when they start selling millions, people pay attention.
Truly, and again, we love this stuff. We love the old-fashioned stuff, but it's like, hey guys, guess what? The game's over here, and they're the ones that are really kicking ass in comic book form. And
Have you read Dogman? The book is horrific.
Which one, buddy?
Dogman.
Yeah,
It is a dog's head sewn on a man's body. And I thought those were whiskers. No, those are stitches. Those
Ew.
are stitches holding the dog's head on the man's body.
I'm gonna blame Heidi McDonald too, because every time something good comes out about like Marvel or DC, she pipes up and says, "Well, what about Smile? That's where the real money's at." That's
which is right.
She's not wrong, Sal. Yeah, man. Honestly,
Right.
I listen to more to come. Heidi's great podcast that she does with Calvin and damn it, I always forget their producer as well. But it's a very smart show. We need more smart podcasts out there, guys, as you well know.
I tell you,
it's one of them.
we were lucky enough to have Raina Telgemeier sign at Challengers twice in the past before she became this international superstar, and we had like 3 to 8 people each time.
Wow.
So nothing, no turnouts, and now when she comes to Chicago, she's in auditoriums.
Yeah,
I mean,
It happens.
and like we used to be able to sell, like in the first month, dozens of her books, but now because they're available everywhere, like gas stations and side of the road, people selling firewood, they have her books there as well. Airport, the books are everywhere, so people don't need to go to a comic store to get them.
Well, who knew that Raina would be the new Rob Liefeld?
Indeed. I like it. Oh man. Gentlemen, should we wrap on that? I think that's an excellent, profound statement that Rich has just made. And I feel like I'm contributing to the decline of Rich's health, keeping him awake this long.
No, I'm good. All right. No, it's been a pleasure.
My man, honestly, thanks for coming on. I intended to, like I said, maybe talk to you on Sunday, but I think you've served the purpose of the moment. And as the story develops, I'm sure I'll check back in with you on how things are going and whatever your observations are. But great coverage today, Rich. Honestly, I think
Thank you.
you did it. You did a hell of a job. It was great to hear retailers talk about it. I urge people to go to Bleeding Cool and read the coverage if they haven't already. And
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. No, thanks for popping in. Sal, keep up the great work with Around Comics. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Fine podcast, and I'm glad that you guys are up and running and everything. And my best to Chris and damn it, Tom Caters. I'm glad I beat you to it. Shame on me. Good Lord, showing how late I'm staying up talking about this stuff. Patrick, all the best with Challengers, man. Literally one of the best stores in Chicago. Yeah, I'm stupid.
Where's Ray? I can't point. Oh, there's Ray.
There you go.
It took me that long to learn how to do it.
It's like poor man's Hollywood Squares. I do realize that. Absolutely.
Johnny and Sal, next time we're all able to get together, Club Lago on me. Rich, you're welcome to join us.
We'll got to do that
for you,
but yeah, absolutely.
I can do it virtually. Yeah, sure.
All right.
We'll call you when we're there.
All right, gentlemen, I will let you go, and I'll wrap up to say thank you to everybody watching. And truly, it was a pleasure seeing everybody. I'm gonna pop everybody out and then go to my solo shot here. Isn't that an interesting, weird little effect going on next to my Batman frame thing? I have no idea what the hell's happening, but that's some sort of weird little green screen thing happening. I swear that is not a chunk of kryptonite. Don't worry, everything's fine here at Casa Word Balloon. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Truly great conversation, excellent contributions from you, the League of Word Balloon listeners that have shown up in this wonderful discussion. As I always end every episode with, I mean it, stay safe,